Mr. President has decided that we must wrestle this problem.
Military and intelligence top brass get presidential order to rejig operational strategies in addressing insecurity.
The whole state of preparedness. We receive report from the federal principal at QC. Everybody has properly distanced the classes.
Students in the nation's capital and some states finally back to school in readiness for exit examinations. Humanitarian Ministry did not spend 13 billion naira on school feeding. Minister clarifies.
Please, we are pleading to you. We are guests from Lebanon. We are stranded.
Plus, relief for 30 Nigerians stranded in Lebanon. Good evening and welcome. It's good to have you join us tonight on the news. I'm Ian Ray John. Hingino John Adams will join me later in the course of the bulletin. We'll start with security, as President Muhammadu Buhari is tasking the nation's armed forces and other security and intelligence agencies to rejig their operational strategies in the fight against crime and criminality to effectively secure Nigeria for a prosperous future. Addressing an extraordinary meeting of the National Security Council, the president maintains that Nigerians deserve a much more peaceful environment for meaningful, purposeful and productive living. State House correspondent Tuda Musambu has the details.
The National Security Council meeting, third in its series for the year 2020, was summoned by President Muhammadu Buhari to critically analyze the worrisome trend in the nation's security situation with a view to finding lasting solutions. The president had on Friday last week described as disturbing the situation in the northwest and north-central Nigeria, while in the northeast, the governor of Borno State, Babagana Zulum, whose convoy was attacked by gunmen, alleged sabotage in the battle against terrorism and insurgency.
The president did not conceal his anger about the declining security situation and directed that we must rejig our strategy, that is both in terms of operation and intelligence, immediate re-engineering of the entire security apparatus to prevent further catastrophe. We must bear in mind that we owe a duty to the people that elected his government, our government, and this is something that I believe will be done in a very short time.
The National Security Advisor explained that President Buhari is not unmindful of the feeling of Nigerians and therefore urged everyone to keep hope alive.
Definitely the president is not oblivious of the fact that securing the nation is the primary responsibility of the government, and I believe in his sincerity. But again, since he's not an octopus, since he's not a spirit, if he delegates to people, then the onus is on them to actually fulfill the legitimate expectation of the larger Nigerian society.
The crucial meeting was attended by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, Secretary to the Governor of the Federation, Chief of Staff to the President, Ministers in charge of Security and Foreign Affairs, Service Chiefs, Inspector General of Police, and heads of other security as well as intelligence agencies. Discussions also centered on drug trafficking and addiction and the resultant negative impact on the nation's security and socio-economic situation.
This has taken on a worrisome dimension. Nigeria's perception on the drug trafficking index has changed from the status of a transit hub to a production center. Our main concern as security operatives is the ultimate destruction to the social fabric and the economy of the nation. There's hardly any violent crime today in Nigeria that is not propelled by the use of these hard substances. Mr. President has decided that we must wrestle this problem. This problem is directly linked to the insecurity we are confronted with.
The meeting stressed the need for concerted efforts by both the government and the governed towards achieving what the National Security Advisor called a whole-of-nation approach in the fight against the drug menace. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And still on security, the Nigerian Navy, in carrying out its statutory role of securing the nation's maritime domain, has recorded remarkable successes through Operation Okun Alafia 2. Uzezi Arure reports that the operation has reduced the nefarious activities of sea pirates and illegal smugglers on Nigerian waterways.
Operation Okun Alafia 2, a Yoruba word for Calm Waters 2, is a 30-day sea operation by the Nigerian Navy to tackle cases of insecurity around the country's territorial waters. The fleet commander, Western Naval Command, who is the tactical commander of the operation, Rear Admiral Danjuma Moses, says, so far, several suspects, including 2 ships, Mother Comfort and Sea Supply, have been apprehended for alleged involvement in illegal movement of petroleum products along Lagos waters using expired naval permits.
Both vessels are currently in own custody, undergoing further investigation preparatory to hand over to appropriate agencies for prosecutions.
The Navy disclosed that one of the vessels had previously been intercepted by NSS Unguru on the 17th of June 2020 at the Atlas Cove Single Buoy Mooring area.
Members of the public are free to divulge credible information to units in their areas or localities to enable them get rid of all forms of criminalities.
Operation Calm Waters 2 was flagged off by Naval Headquarters on the 24th of July 2020 to police the Nigerian waterways. In Lagos, Uzezi Arure, NTA News.
Meanwhile, military might may now be counted not in weapons but in digital and technical expertise, say key players in security and communications who have charged 28 participants at the National Defense College to adapt to this new normal caused by the COVID-19 disruption. Defense correspondent Najatu Tijani reports that the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy delivered the keynote lecture.
Security is everyone's business, but it takes a certain level of military expertise to draft ways of dealing with insecurity. And while course 28 participants at the National Defense College, Nigeria's foremost military training institute, have the expertise of key players in the industry, including the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, all represented, to tap from. They are being challenged by the guest speaker, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, to look beyond warfare to an often overlooked area with vast potential.
Emerging technologies come up with so many solutions to the security challenges of each and every nation, like big data analytics, artificial intelligence, robotic technology.
It's important that security and defense establishments show more than a casual interest in the digital economy.
Military minds are known for strategic thinking and having one of the best skilled set of hands in any sector. And the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy is asking the country to adopt the military example to enhance digital economy. 112 course 28 participants from the Armed Forces of Nigeria, Nigeria Police Force, ministries, departments and agencies and other countries are expected to graduate on the 6th of August. NTA News.
Now looking at education, schools across the Federal Capital Territory resumed today for exit classes. To make good his promise for on-the-spot assessment to ascertain preparedness by schools for reopening, Minister of State for Education Chukwuemeka Wajuba visited some federal government colleges in Abuja. Abdullahi Musa Suleja reports.
The first port of call by the minister in company of the permanent secretary is the Federal Government College Kwali in the FCT. Wash hands point and temperature testing kits were provided at the gate before entry. Social distancing protocols were observed at the points where students were received on resumption. Classes and dormitories were also inspected.
I've seen their own state of preparedness. Yesterday we received report from the federal principal at QC. Everybody has properly distanced the classes.
I engaged in online classes. I also read my books and extra lessons.
Thereafter, Federal Government Girls College Buhari received the visitors. There, the necessary provisions were also provided.
We have been begging the children not to. But the moment they came down here, they all worried my daughter.
The facilities have been decontaminated, and we are grateful to Federal Ministry of Environment for that. The spacing is very satisfactory.
Other directors of the ministry have been dispatched to various parts of the country to ensure compliance by the reopening schools. Abdullahi Musa Slija, NTA News.
And after 4 months of closure, schools in Benue State have resumed to enable students and pupils in exit classes set for their examinations. Bem Haya, who monitored the situation in Makurdi, the state capital, reports that all the schools visited are complying with the COVID-19 safety guidelines.
Public and private schools in Benue State have resumed, and lessons have also commenced for students and pupils in SS3, JSS3 and Primary 6 who are to start their final examinations. The schools are being cleared of weed as the students were tested for their temperature before being allowed into their classes.
I feel so excited.
All our students have a minimum of 3 face masks and a provision of hand sanitizers made by the school to them.
Commissioner for Education, Benue State, Professor Dennis Itavia, who was in company of other government officials, monitored the situation in most schools within the Makurdi metropolis. He expressed satisfaction with what the management of the schools have done so far and stated the determination of government to continue to monitor the schools for sustenance of safety measures.
Well, this can only get better because we know our principals are disciplined. We had stakeholders meeting and we spoke to them, and when we are, now that we are out, they have complied and they will be consistent.
With these measures in place, what remains is for the hitch-free commencement of the exit examinations and the subsequent resumption of the other category of students and pupils. In Makurdi, Bem Hanya, NTA News.
From Makurdi, let's see the situation in other parts of the country following the federal government's directive for the reopening of schools for exiting students nationwide. Reports from states show low level of compliance, while arrangements for resumption from other states are at various stages in line with COVID-19 safety protocols. Abubakar Usman Akwanga completes the report.
Reports across the country indicate that only few schools reopened for classes, as many are yet to resume lessons for exiting students sitting for the senior secondary school certificate examinations. From Kaduna, correspondent Nejama Adamu reports that about 371 schools are earmarked for decontamination and disinfection, while other non-pharmaceutical measures have been put in place preparatory to formal resumption of academic activities next week, Monday.
We are ready to send our children to school, but we want government to ensure that the prepared guidelines on the reopening of schools prepared by the Federal Ministry of Education in collaboration with the Presidential Task Force, NCDC, Ministry of Environment and what have you, are strictly complied and adhered to.
From Ilorin, Kwara State, Aisha Bakar Yahya reports that the federal government mandatory measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 during classes by exiting students have been carefully observed, with additional provision for isolation centers and physical distancing.
School is prepared for resumption for the exit class. If the government can help the students with a nose mask, infrared thermometer, so that we can effectively take the temperature of the students.
From Abakaliki, Ebonyi State, the story is different, as correspondent Chika Okori says only teachers complied with the resumption date for final year students after adequate safety and precautionary measures were put in place.
The state is providing assistance to schools in terms of provision of hand sanitizers, provision of face masks.
Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, says her ministry did not spend 13 billion naira on school feeding. The minister gave a clarification in a statement released on the fake news circulating around SAMs purportedly spent daily on the provision of take-home rations and a modified homegrown school feeding program. Elizabeth Omori has details.
In a statement released by the ministry, 124,589 households were impacted between May 14 and July 6, 2020, at 4,200 per take-home ration. The total figure for impacting 124,589 households is 523,273,800. The ministry says the federal government provided funding while states implemented. In recent times, the statement adds that there have been rumors and speculations around one of the key interventions, the homegrown school feeding program, which was modified and implemented in 3 states following a presidential directive. The provision of take-home rations under the modified homegrown school feeding program is not a sole initiative of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. The ministry, in obeying the presidential directive, went into consultations with state governments through the Nigeria Governors Forum, after which it was resolved that take-home rations remain the most viable option for feeding children during the lockdown. The statement adds that it was a joint resolution of the ministry and the state governments to give out take-home rations, and the stakeholders also resolved that the program would start with the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states as pilot cases. Each take-home ration is valued at 4,200. The figure was not arrived at without proper consultation and not invented. According to statistics by the MBS and CBN, a typical household in Nigeria has 5.6 to 6 members in its household, with 3 to 4 regarded as dependent. Based on the original design of the homegrown school feeding program, long before it was domiciled in the ministry, every child on the program receives a meal a day. The meal costs 70 naira per child. 20 school days per month means a child eats food worth 1,400 per month. In the FCT, 29,609 households were impacted. Lagos recorded 37,589, while Ogun State impacted 60,391 households, making a total of 124,589 households impacted between May 14 and July 6, 2020. On the issue of palliatives, the minister noted that she never said every Nigerian has received palliatives, but state governments in Nigeria received palliatives for onward distribution to the poorest of the poor in their states. She also disclosed that EFCC, CCB, ICPC, DSS, and a host of NGOs were invited to monitor the homegrown school feeding program. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
This is the Network News at 9 on the NTA. Former Minister of Justice and Farouk Awan rearraigned in court. Details in the second part of tonight's news. Welcome back. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has unveiled the reviewed Nigeria Broadcasting Code in Lagos. The reviewed code, which contains antitrust provision aimed at boosting local content and encouraging the growth of the local industry, among other requirements. Anthony Forson reports.
The 6th edition of the amended Broadcast Code is a review of the 5th edition. The amendment was necessitated by a presidential directive in the wake of the 2019 general elections on the role of the NBC, as well as the conduct of the various broadcast stations before, during, and after the elections. In this direction, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed pointed out that with President Muhammadu Buhari's approval of the recommendations that will reposition the NBC, the amendments are mostly in the areas of political broadcasting, local content, coverage of emergencies, advertising, and anti-competitive behavior. The minister maintained that sub-licensing and rights sharing will create opportunities for local operators to be carried along and raise revenue, just as the law prohibiting backlog of advert debts will promote sustainability for the stations and content producers. Similarly, the registration of web broadcasting will also grant the country the opportunity to regulate negative foreign content that are harmful.
This particular provision grants the country the opportunity to regulate negative foreign broadcasts that harm the country. Such harms could be in the areas of security, protection for minors, protection of human dignity, economic fraud, and privacy.
Lai Mohammed equally touched on the provisions of responsibility of broadcast stations on national emergencies, as well as fines for breaches. The minister emphatically dismissed what he described as blackmail and the engagement of hack writers to discredit the amendment of the NBC Code.
The 6th edition and the amendments which we now want to unveil remains the regulations for broadcasting in Nigeria. Our attention remains the good of the country. We need to catalyze the growth of the local industry. We need to create jobs for our teeming creative youths. The opportunities must be created, and we believe that effective regulatory interventions are a sure way of attaining this.
Acting Director General of the NBC, Armstrong Idachaba, while applauding the federal government's determination to put in place an effective and functional broadcast industry, said a number of initiatives and activities put in place by the federal government have in no small way put the industry on a viable path.
We are also committed to creating diversities of programming, and we're also interested and committed to offering opportunities for employment and wealth in the broadcast industry.
The first NBC Code was published in 1993, with the 6th in 2019 and amended in 2020. In Lagos, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
And heading to the court now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has rearraigned former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mohammed Aduke, SAN, over money laundering charges. Judiciary correspondent Viera Chumuba reports that the Court of Appeal has also dismissed the suit filed by the former member of House of Representatives Ad hoc Committee Chairman on Fuel Subsidy, Farouk Lawan, and upheld the decision of the lower court.
This is the third time the EFCC is rearraigning the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mohammed Aduke. This rearrangement and amendment of charges followed fresh discovery of evidence against him. The former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mohammed Aduke, was accused of collecting the sum of 300 million from Abubakar as alleged proceeds of unlawful activities in 2013, while in the same year he was said to have collected another $2.2 million from one Mohammed. The federal government also alleged that Aduke illegally paid the sum of 15 million naira in 1320s and another 18 million in 2220s into his personal account with Unity Bank in contravention of the nation's financial regulations. Ali Abubakar was alleged to have received payment of $2 million and another $4 million from one Abdulkarim Mustafa between September and October same year.
If you look at the amounts in which the former AG, the first defendant, was involved, if you look at the amended charge, you see that there are differences. There are increased amounts as a result of evidence coming to our knowledge.
Now they added 6 pounds now against the second defendant to make 7 pounds.
Also, the Court of Appeal has ordered the former House of Representatives member ad hoc committee chairman on fuel subsidy Farouk Lawan to return to Federal High Court to face trial in the $500,000 bribery case pending against him. The appellate court upheld the ruling of Justice Angela Otaluka of the High Court of the FCT, who rejected a no-case submission filed by Lawan. Justice Olawale Ige, who read the lead judgment of the Court of Appeal, held that there was no injustice occasioned against Lawan by Justice Otaluka's ruling ordering him to enter his defense in the trial. In Abuja, Viera Chumuba, NTA News.
Now talking about the pandemic, United Nations warns that the world faces a general catastrophe due to schools closure occasioned by coronavirus pandemic, as 78 medical personnel test positive to COVID-19 in South Sudan. Let's join Uche Ugochukwu for more on global COVID-19 update.
Following the announcement to begin vaccination against COVID-19 in October, the World Health Organization has urged Russia to follow international guidelines for producing a vaccine. WHO says only 6 vaccines are officially on final phase testing, and Russia's is not one of them. The African continent coronavirus deaths reaches 20,707 out of the 974,210 infections. Nigeria accounts for 44,129 confirmed cases, with 288 new cases reported by the Center for Disease Control in 15 states. South Sudan's health ministry says 78 frontline healthcare workers have tested positive for COVID-19 and 1 has died. The number of coronavirus infections in Latin America has passed 5 million, making it the world's hardest hit region. Brazil has continued to drive the regional surge with more than 2.7 million infections. Colombia recorded 11,000 new cases in the last 24 hours, while other nations are struggling to contain the pandemic. Millions of people in the Philippines are back on lockdown over fears the surge in cases could collapse the healthcare system. And 11,764,907 people infected by COVID-19 have recovered from the 18,544,971 global cases shown on the coronavirus dashboard of Worldometer as of 6:30 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the coronavirus pandemic has led to the largest disruption of education in history, with schools closed in more than 160 countries in mid-July. The UN chief said at least 40 million children globally have missed out on education in their critical preschool year. Getting students back to school, therefore, should be a top priority once the pandemic is under control to avert facing a generational catastrophe that could waste untold human potentials. That's it from here. I am Uche Ugochukwu.
Many thanks, Uche. Extensive research development has remained an integral aspect of Nigerian universities in evolving solutions to flatten the curve of coronavirus pandemic in the country since the index case was diagnosed. Abubakar Usman Nakwanga reports that efforts of Nigerian scientists in this regard is captured by the National Universities Commission in a trail-blazing compendium of increasing COVID-19 response and the fight against the pandemic.
The commitment of Nigerian universities in joining global efforts to finding clinical solutions since the outbreak of COVID-19 is yielding significant results. The testimony, which has come under the scrutiny of critical agencies in the health sector with impressive feedbacks, is raising more concerns for support.
The compendium which we are launching, so to speak, today contains authentic ongoing efforts broadly in the areas of engineering, such as the development of mechanical and automatic ventilators at Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, the Air Force Institute of Technology, AFIT Kaduna, and Bayero University Kano.
So far, about 32 universities nationwide innovated mechanical ventilators, pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical solutions, which are verifiable and authentic by NUC standards.
Various universities within the Nigerian university system have been making contributions through research and innovation endeavors to the nation's robust response to the devastating pandemic.
Testing and screening centers with effective collaboration with international partners is promoting more endeavors to mitigate impact of the dreadful virus.
The commission says reinventing the wheel of a new dawn in areas of funding and patronage of research and output will build confidence in local medical inventions and other consumables as far as the fight against COVID-19 is concerned. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the airlift of COVID-19 supplies and consumables by the Nigerian Air Force to 14 West African countries. Correspondent Mitari Ikpe reports that Minister of State for Health Olorinimbe Mamora flagged off the exercise at the Air Force wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja.
There are more than 130,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and almost 2,000 deaths so far in the West African sub-region. President Muhammadu Buhari, as ECOWAS champion in the fight against COVID-19 in the sub-region, believes that no country is safe until COVID-19 is collectively defeated. This is why the president has availed ECOWAS the services and logistics of the Nigerian Air Force to distribute thousands of personal protective equipment and other medical consumables across member states in the sub-region. The supplies were procured for ECOWAS by the West African Health Organization and the German government to help contain the spread of COVID-19 in West Africa.
We are doing what we should do. We are doing what we promised to do, particularly from the champion himself, that's President Muhammadu Buhari.
ECOWAS says President Buhari has done beyond his job description as ECOWAS champion.
It is our hope that the supply will help contain the spread of the virus.
Nigeria had earlier taken delivery of its share of the COVID-19 supplies from ECOWAS. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
And away from COVID-19, President Muhammadu Buhari felicitates with Professor Innocent Uja on his election as president of the Nigerian Medical Association. In a congratulatory message to all the executive members of the association, the president affirms that the NMA plays a strategic role in the growth of the country's health sector, staying on the front line during emergencies to keep everyone safe, like the ongoing fight against COVID-19. President Buhari assures Professor Uja and the executive members of the government's full cooperation to help them succeed in their leadership positions and improve health services in the country. King Apollos Chu Egberi Mary Okori and Onee Nchia, the 10th of Eleme Kingdom, has advised Okrika traditional rulers and elders to advise their subjects to stop encroaching on Eleme territory, as the peace and development of the kingdom is non-negotiable. He reiterated this standpoint while calling on them to respect the Supreme Court judgment of 1959 on the boundary of Eleme Kingdom. Jenny Basi reports.
The meeting, which had chiefs from the 10 tribes and 6 clans in Eleme local government area, is aimed at addressing the continuous encroachment of Eleme farmlands by the Okrika youths, Obibo, and other neighboring communities. The Onee Nchia X, His Royal Highness King Apollos Chu, frowned at the frequent attacks of Eleme farmers, particularly women, and the destruction of crops and economic trees by indigenes of Okrika, Obibo, and other neighboring communities. He called on Okrika traditional chiefs and elders to respect the Supreme Court judgment and the white paper recommendations of former Governor Peter Odili panel of inquiry regarding the boundary disagreement.
The beauty of a kingdom is that the territory that you cover is intact. And when a territory are being compromised, you know that they are provoking the people of Eleme generally.
Other members of his Council of Chiefs said no kingdom will compromise their territories and assured its citizens of protection of every inch of their territory in line with their fundamental responsibilities of protecting lives and property.
Reference to the judgment from the Supreme Court of Nigeria actually identifies that Eleme owns the land to the water edge. We don't want skirmishes, rivalries, and wars. Our parents fought wars, but now we don't want to fight a war, we want a dialogue.
The traditional fathers thanked the people for exhibiting high level of tolerance, urging them to continue to maintain the peace. In Port Harcourt, Jenny Bassi, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has sent warm greetings to the founder and chairman of BUA Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu, on his 60th birthday. The president congratulates the business magnate for his foresight in investing extensively in agriculture, infrastructure, manufacturing and real estate, which is strengthening the economy while bolstering the government's diversification efforts. President Buhari extols the large-heartedness of the BUA Group chairman and his consistent intervention in the fight against COVID-19. He joins family and friends of Abdul Samad Rabiu to celebrate the milestone and prays that the Almighty God rewards him with long life, good health and more wisdom. We'll now take you to Lagos, where Hingino will bring us our next set of reports. Hello, Hingino. Hello, Hingino.
Hello, Henry. Talking road matters now. It has been 11 days since the third mainland bridge was partially closed for repairs. In this period, there has been no major road traffic accident, and the Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Boboye Oyeyemi, says the feat must be sustained by synergizing with all relevant agencies in traffic management to ensure seamless motoring. Dotun Oguyemi has the report.
As the days go by, motorists and other road users are adapting to the new roadmap within the metropolis, especially those who depend on the Third Mainland Bridge for speedy movement. Time is of the essence, as they are now more conscious of the traffic advisory plan. The Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Boboye Oyeyemi, who monitored the situation, commended Lagos motorists for their cooperation and reiterated that stricter measures will be taken against drivers of articulated vehicles who fail to comply with safety regulations.
In September 2015, we impounded about 3,650 flatbed trailers, and we won the union then. But I think with the mobile course being provided by the state government now, we are going back as from next week, Monday.
Meanwhile, the first phase of the replacement of 6 expansion joints and other works on the bridge are different stages.
They will soon start the removal of the bearings on the joint. But the first one that we want to carry out is the removal and the replacement of the expansion joint. The work will be completed at the same time, within that 6 months.
Since the partial closure of the Third Mainland Bridge, over 2,000 personnel drawn from security, traffic officials and engineers from the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing have been working day and night to ensure seamless flow of traffic as well as timely delivery of the project. In Lagos, Dotun Oguyemi, NTA News.
And away from road matters, a committee to oversee the establishment and takeoff of the federal government-approved Oil and Gas Museum and Research Center in Oloibiri, Bayelsa State has been inaugurated. The ceremony was performed by the Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Timipri Silva. Joy Ken Abakwe reports.
The story of crude oil in Nigeria is incomplete without the mention of Oloibiri, a community in Ogbia local government area of Bayelsa State, where oil was first discovered in 1956. Preserving its history is the basis for the establishment of a museum and research center in Bayelsa State. The objectives include the commercialization of research findings, promotion of homegrown technology, retention of education and tourism, as well as job creation.
2 committees and 5 project teams have been created to provide necessary support and supervision essential to deliver the Oloibiri Museum and Research Center project. The choice of Oloibiri as the location of the museum and research center is quite apt and commendable. It couldn't have been anywhere else.
Participating and contributing partners include the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, Petroleum Technology Development Fund, Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, and the Bayelsa State government.
Participation percentages are divided in the manner that is shown on the screen. PTDF 40%, NCDMB 30%, Shell Petroleum Development Company 20%, and the Bayelsa State government 10% participation. The secretariat of this project will be in Bayelsa State because that's where the project will happen, and it will be housed by NCDMB in our Yenagua office.
So it's great to be able to then refer back to our history that brought us the kind of wholesale progress that the oil and gas industry has brought.
Work on the Oloibiri Oil and Gas Museum and Research Development Center project, which has been on the drawing board for more than 3 decades, will span 36 months. In Lagos, Joy Ken Abakbuya, NTA News.
We now take a break. The news continues shortly.
Good to have you back. 30 Nigerians in a video appealing for help have been rescued by the Nigerian mission in Lebanon and relocated to a more conducive apartment. They will be part of 150 others trafficked and stranded in Lebanon to be evacuated back to Nigeria. The Lebanese ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Hosam Diab, disclosed the evacuation plans when the management of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NITCOM, led by the Secretary, Dr. Sule Yakubu Basi, visited the embassy in Abuja. Ambassador Diab stated that the 150 Nigerians will be returned home in batches. The first batch of 110 will leave Beirut, Lebanon on August 12, 2020 to Lagos, while the second batch will depart Lebanon to Abuja on August 16, 2020. He commended the efforts of the Lebanese community and the Oyo State government, who is sponsoring the return of 55 of the girls. In the same vein, the Secretary to Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Dr. Sule Yakubu Basi, on behalf of the Chairman, CEO, NITCOM, Honorable Abike Dabiri-Rewa, applauded the excellent ties existing between Nigeria and Lebanon and urged both countries to sustain the cordial relationship. Dr. Basi also commended the dedication and commitment of Nigerian ambassador to Lebanon, mission staff, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Oyo and Ogun State governments, and other strategic partners. Now, the Nigeria Police Force has reacted to what it calls spurious allegations in a report published by Sahara Reporters dated August 3, 2020, alleging that the Inspector General of Police, Adamu, illegally raised millions of naira for construction of a training school in Nasarawa, describing it as false, baseless and misleading. A statement by Force PRO says the publication, which referenced several unnamed and unverifiable sources, alleged essentially that the IGP used his office to unlawfully compel and in fact threaten mobile police commanders into generating millions of naira monthly through illegal means for the purpose of establishment of a mobile training school in his hometown in Nasarawa State, which is totally false. The statement further sets the record straight, saying the establishment of the police mobile training school in Endu, Nasarawa State, north central geopolitical zone of Nigeria, was informed by overriding national security consideration on the need to strengthen the operational capacity of the special forces of the Nigeria Police Force, and that it is not situated in the IGP's hometown, as he is from Lafia. The construction of the facility was achieved with the support of the Nasarawa State government and well-meaning corporate bodies within the contexts of their corporate social responsibility. In all instances, all the supports were extended were not in cash but in form of donation of materials. The only involvement of some squadron commanders was to ensure the delivery of some of the construction materials so donated by the corporate bodies. Nigeria's National Park Service joined 63 other associates of International Ranger Federation in 46 countries to mark the 2020 World Ranger Day. Minister of Environment Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar considers the commemoration as timely in view of life-threatening dangers associated with forest conservation in Nigeria. Onengie Fineface reports.
In 35 years of existence, at least 40 rangers of the National Park Service have been killed and several others injured or maimed in the course of performing their duties. This and associated criminal acts like interferences by bandits, illegal wildlife poaching, hunting, logging, grazing, and mining necessitated the commemoration of Ranger Day by the international community. Considered as unsung heroes of nature, rangers are celebrated for their gallantry in protecting and conserving biological diversity in forests, games, and biosphere reserves.
As conservationists, environmentalists, to continue to do the needful in ensuring that our natural heritage is sustained and not compromised by our today's quest in order to ensure intergenerational equity.
Commemorating Ranger Day avails conservationists the opportunity to articulate standardization of the operations of rangers in Nigeria.
We need empowered and well-supported rangers operating in a more secure workplace that are more effective and are ambassadors for the profession.
To bring the National Park Service, the park rangers at par with other paramilitary agencies in the country and get them properly equipped to confront the challenges that they have.
World Ranger Day was first celebrated in 1992. In Abuja, Onengie Fineface, NTA News.
Time for another break, sports and more.